And now on the line is Sheiila Gilheany. Sheiila is the CEO of Alcohol Action Ireland. Sheiila, welcome back to the RFM.
And thanks very much for having me on, Darren.
Okay, Sheiila, it doesn't seem like as long ago as this to me, but I last interviewed you on the RFM just over 6 months ago, leading us up to talking about your campaigning in this month's general election. Can you tell our listeners a bit about what yourselves and Alcohol Action Ireland have been up to in general over the last 6 months?
Well, a big campaign that we would have been working on over the past year is actually to do with the sale of alcohol bill. This was a proposal from the Department of Justice to increase licensing hours, and we were very concerned about that because all the evidence is that if you increase the licensing hours, you increase the amount of alcohol that is consumed, and with that, the level of alcohol harms that are experienced in the country. And we have evidence from multiple jurisdictions, but in fact we only have to look up the road to Northern Ireland, which found that when they increased their licensing hours back in October 2021, they saw a 17% increase in alcohol-related crime, and there's every reason to think that we would see something similar here. So we did work very hard and intensively on that. We're pleased that the government didn't go ahead, at least so far, with those proposals. And now we have an election and a new government coming in, and we'll be keeping our eye very much on what might emerge in that regard.
Okay, has there been any change with the implementation of the Public Health Alcohol Act over the last 6 months, Sheiila?
Well, we know from what government's saying that they are working on a particular element of the Act, which is the restrictions on the content of alcohol advertisements. Now, the legislation was passed in 2018. The government did say that that these regulations would be published before the end of the year, and we're in November now. I would be very pleased to see them coming out. But what these regulations would do was to put controls on, I suppose, the kind of myths that we see coming out from alcohol ads at the moment. And basically the idea is to strip out those myths and to have purely factual ads, which say things like, where the product was made, how much it is, where you can buy it, things like that, as opposed to what we see at the moment is very much, a kind of a myth of, buy this product to have a good time, or, to enjoy sport, you have to be having alcohol or whatever, things like that. So we are, waiting with interest to see what happens. And we are glad to see that, the Minister for Health did say that they would be published before the end of the year. And we're keen to see that.
So it could happen over the next few months, could it?
It could, yes, but as I say, we haven't seen it. And my understanding is that actually these proposals, these regulations, would also then have to be reported to the European Commission as part of kind of the policy process that was on there. So it isn't something that would be implemented quickly, because there is a process that would have to be gone through there. But one other thing just to note is that the government would have announced actually earlier in the year that the restrictions on the broadcast watershed would be coming into effect from January 2025. So what this means is that alcohol advertisements can't be shown before 9 p.m. on TV, and there's some restrictions actually on radio as well. So we certainly very much welcome that, and that'll be coming in, let's say, from January 2025.
January 2025, so that's another lesson. That's like 6 weeks away, yeah?
Yes, exactly. It is. So we think that is a very positive development. Though I will say one thing that we are, really seeking clarity on, though, is that, for example, when you watch rugby matches, which are sponsored, for example, by things like Guinness Six Nations, these the television, the televising of such games, they're just coming down with alcohol advertisements during the actual match itself. And we have been calling for clarity that would say that you can't be showing a match like that during that broadcast, watershed period, because clearly there's alcohol ads been shown at that stage. So we have raised this with both the HSE and the Department of Health, and also with what was the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland, now Commission Naman, and we're waiting actually to hear, what exactly is the situation in relation to that. Because to me, it would be making a mockery of that broadcast watershed if you were showing, one long alcohol advertisement in something like the Guinness Six Nations.
You're talking about the zero alcohol advertisements, yeah?
I'm actually not even just referring to the zero, because, the zero alcohol we see actually on the pitch, but you also see things like Guinness, just ordinary Guinness advertisements, all around, like on the stands, for example. The very fact that it has been called the Guinness Six Nations, this is all advertising for Guinness. This is irrespective of whether there's the 0.0 or anything added to it. It is one long alcohol advertisement. We actually have research from colleagues in University of Stirling who would have found that on some of these high-profile matches that you're actually seeing an alcohol brand reference every 8 seconds, so one every 8 seconds when you're watching a match. So I think by any standards, that could be called an alcohol advertisement.
I think the whole area of advertising with alcohol is a huge area, like it's a huge issue, It's so it's so influential, Like, I've been aware of this issue since I was a teenager, because even when I didn't drink much when I was a teenager, I was aware that the advertising is very kind of seductive, isn't it? It can be.
It is, absolutely. It is. It is a driver of alcohol consumption, and that's why the industry spend so much on it. We would estimate that the industry spends up the order of 115 million annually on alcohol advertisements, and that's just the straightforward advertisements, things like on TV, radio, and things like that. That's not counting the sponsorship deals that they would have. So there's a huge amount of a saturation level, really, of alcohol marketing that we're all exposed to, and it works.
Okay, and the main reason I got in touch with you today, Sheiila, is that you have a big general election campaign this month in Alcohol Action Ireland. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. Well, what we're calling for in this election is that whatever government comes into form, is that we're really looking at for an office for alcohol harm reduction. And what we mean by that is a single place, we said, should be, within the Department of Health, which comes up with the policies, which drives the policies which are needed to reduce the harm that we are experiencing from alcohol. So what we can see at the moment is that you would have the Department of Health who are seeking to reduce alcohol consumption, but then you have other departments which have put forward policies which are in direct contradiction to that. And, I just gave the example there of the sale of alcohol bill. And that was coming out of the Department of Justice, who handle the licensing of the sale of alcohol. And it is clear that there is very little communication between the two departments about this. There are other examples. We have seen, for example, Department of Enterprise actually giving grants to the alcohol industry, which seems bizarre when you consider that alcohol costs Ireland at least 12 billion annually.
12,
so the idea of 12 billion,
okay,
and that would be an estimate from the World Health Organization, who would say that in high-income countries such as Ireland, alcohol costs that state about 2.5% of GDP. That's where that data would come from. So we would say that there is a clear need for a dedicated office which is solely looking at alcohol issues and would be driving the policies that are needed, both within the Department of Health but also across government, so that there is a coherent approach to alcohol. I'll give you another example actually of it. Department of Finance is where excise duties are set, but there has been no change in excise duties in the past 11 years, and it's beyond belief actually, because we know that the price of alcohol, when alcohol is very affordable, there tends to be a lot consumed. So excise duties are a very important element in that kind of policy framework that's needed to address alcohol harm, and yet you just don't see the public health approach being taken by the Department of Finance in relation to this, although, funny enough, they do that in relation to tobacco. So we can see that, for example, the price of cigarettes has gone up every year in that same period, that same 11 years. There's been an increase in excise duties in relation to cigarettes, but there has been no change in relation to alcohol. And we would be saying that what's missing here is a dedicated unit that would be driving the coherent policy that's needed. So we're calling on governments, on all political parties, to consider this and to put this into the programme for government of whatever shape that government would look like.
Okay, Sheiila, have any of the parties included a policy in their election manifestos of being in favour of bringing in such an office?
Yeah, well, we have seen actually, and we've seen this in communications actually, Sinn Féin and People Before Profit, their candidates have been signing up actually for our election pledge on this particular thing. But so have individual members. For example, we have seen people from the Green Party sign that pledge as well, from actually quite a wide variety, of parties who have shown that interest. So we think that this is a common sense approach. We're very grateful actually to members of the public who have been contacting party leaders on this through our website. Just looking there this morning, actually at the last count, about 176 emails have been sent to party leaders, calling for this, and about 51 candidates have signed our pledge, saying that they would look to do, to implement this particular policy. But we understand that any government is always going to be a coalition here in Ireland. So we know that whoever is in power, you have to work with whoever is there and ask them, really to take a look at this. It's a sensible kind of proposal. And funny enough, when Micheál Martin was bringing in the smoking ban in public places 20 years ago, one of the things that he did at that stage was to establish a tobacco office, precisely for the very reasons that I'm just saying, and he actually said at the time that the need for that office for tobacco control was so that they would have the capacity to deal with the issue. And that, we think, is something that is very much needed in relation to alcohol, which, is actually costing probably about twice as much to Ireland as tobacco does at the moment.